The Daytona 500, the biggest stock car event of the year and the first points-paying race in the NASCAR season since 1982. It has been a staple in NASCAR since the introduction of the track in 1959. It's a race that is so important to the sport that the only thing bigger than winning the Daytona 500 is winning the Cup Series championship. 41 drivers have been able to win at the Great American Race, including the likes of Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, Cal Yarborough 4 different times, and the King Richard Petty 7 different times. It's safe to say that if a driver wins the Great American Race, their name will be forever sealed in the NASCAR history books. But as great as these drivers are, there are some drivers who are legends in their own right who have never been able to kiss the Harley J. Earl Trophy in victory lane. For some drivers, it was one of their most daunting feats, as it took Dale Waltrip 17 tries to win the Daytona 500 and a staggering 20 times for the Intimidator to finally win the race. So it's not surprising that some drivers were never able to have that feeling of winning the most important race of the year. Now, failure to win the Daytona 500 does not necessarily mean that a driver's legacy is in question. It just proves how difficult it can be to win this race. With that being said, today we dive into the 10 best drivers that never won the Daytona 500. Number 1, Ricky Rudd. Fun fact, Ricky Rudd has only failed to qualify for 2 Cup Series races in his entire career. Both of them came in the 1976 season. His second DNQ was the Southern 500, while his first one was the Daytona 500. Crown jewels were not good to him that season. Ricky Rudd was a driver who had a knack for road courses, short tracks, and large intermediate tracks, but not the super speedways. In fact, there was never a Daytona 500 where he led more than 10 laps. It wasn't like he had mediocre equipment either, as some of the teams he drove for were Yates Racing, Wood Brothers Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, and even Richard Childress Racing. Also, he was able to win the pole for the 1983 Daytona 500, but only led 1 lap in that race. Now, I don't want to give off the idea that he was abysmal at superspeedways, because he really wasn't, as he regularly scored top 10s in the events. It just wasn't his strong style of racing. Some drivers dominate at pack racing, while others succeed in more physically demanding races. Ricky Rudd would fit more in the second category. Out of 29 attempts, his best finish in the event would only be a 3rd place finish. Number 2, Ned Jarrett. One of the greatest drivers in the 1960s was Ned Jarrett, who was able to score 2 championships and 50 wins. What's even more impressive is that Ned Jarrett was able to score 15 of those victories in 1964, equating to more than 25% of the races he entered. This makes it so shocking that he was never able to win the Daytona 500. Now, in his defense, he only competed in the race 7 times, but in those 7 times, Ned was only able to lead in one of them, the 1963 Daytona 500. Ned Jarrett would only lead 26 laps before he would be overtaken by Tiny Lund with just 7 laps to go. Now, it wouldn't be all doom and gloom for Ned Jarrett at this track, as even though he was not able to win the race himself, his son Dale Jarrett was able to win the Great American Race 3 different times. 2 of those times, Ned Jarrett was up in the broadcast booth cheering his son in the final laps.
Bring her to the inside, Dale. Don't let him get down there. He's going to make it. Dale Jarrett's going to win the Daytona 500. All right. Oh, look at Martha. Oh, dear. Oh, can you believe it? Way to go. Hey. Man.
So yes, Ned was never able to win the most prestigious race. However, I don't think that bothers him too much, as he already accomplished so much, and to announce your son winning the race must have been a dream come true for the 2-time champ. Number 3, Terry Labonte. Do it for Terry! Terry Labonte raced in NASCAR's top division for over 36 years. During that time, he was able to win 2 championships and 22 races. In those 36 years, he ran in 32 different Daytona 500s. Unfortunately, he was not able to win a single one of them, which is a shame too, because the Iceman himself came so close multiple times between the 80s and 90s. In 1986, Terry Labonte would finish second behind the driver of the number 5 machine, which was Jeffrey Bodine. In 1994, he would take over the ride and would finish 3rd behind Sterling Marlin and Ernie Irvan. In 1996, it looked to be another good opportunity for Labonte to win the Great American Race. Unfortunately, around the halfway point, Terry Labonte would complain about engine issues and would finish the race 4 laps down. His last close chance to winning the race would come just a year later. Even though he was not able to lead a lap in that race, he would be part of the 1-2-3 finish that Hendrick Motorsports was able to score in the Daytona 500. After that, Labonte would never come close to hoisting the Harley J. Earl Trophy, as he closed out his career running only the superspeedway races until his retirement in 2014. Number 4. Buck Baker. Buck Baker was one of the pioneers of NASCAR, as he was there at the beginning of the association's inception. Throughout his time in the sport, he was able to accomplish a lot, as he was the first ever driver to win back-to-back championships and score 46 victories throughout his career. He was able to win at a lot of cities in the sport, but one place he was never able to win at was Daytona. Before Daytona International Speedway was built, NASCAR would race at the beach at Daytona, where the track would be half pavement and the other half would be sand. Buck Baker came close a few times to winning at Daytona Beach, but his best finish would only be second in 1954, as he was never able to get around the strongest driver in that race, Lee Petty. The Daytona 500, on the other hand, would not be good to the two-time champion, as not only was he never able to win at the track either, but was never able to finish on the lead lap. In fact, he did not even qualify for the event in 1965. Now, we understand that back then, it wouldn't be much of a shock to see most of the field one or more laps down to the leader. I mean, Ned Jarrett won the Southern 500 by 14 laps, for crying out loud. But to see a multi-time champion struggle this much at the most prestigious race of the season must have been tough to see, as many quickly knew that Baker would never be able to win at the track. Luckily for the Baker family, they were able to collect one victory in the event, as his son Buddy Baker was able to win the Great American Race 4 years after Buck Baker retired from the sport. Number 5. Bobby Labonte. Bobby Labonte had a successful career in the sport, scoring 21 victories and winning his only championship over the Intimidator in the year 2000. He was able to win at all of the crown jewel events in NASCAR, well, except for the biggest one, which was the Great American Race. Now, for most people, they would say not being able to win the biggest race after having a successful career could boil down to just bad luck. But in this case, Bobby Labonte was hardly ever a factor when it came to the Daytona 500. In 24 attempts, Bobby Labonte was only able to finish in the top 10 3 different times. One of those times was in 2011, the year of the tandem draft, as he and Trevor Bayne would join up in the final laps, where Bayne would win his only cup race in his career, while Labonte would drop back to 4th behind Edwards and David Gilliland. His best chance of winning the event, however, would be 13 years prior, where Labonte was able to score the pole and lead 22 laps in the event. However, this would be the same year where Earnhardt Sr. would finally be able to break his curse and win his only Daytona 500 in his career, leaving Labonte with the second place finish. Near the end of his career, he would only race at the superspeedway events similar to his brother, with smaller teams. His last attempt in the 500 would be in 2016, where he would only finish 31st. Number 6. Rusty Wallace. Short tracks and road courses were where Rusty Wallace was at his best. Out of his 55 Cup Series wins, none of them came from Talladega or Daytona. In fact, his only real highlights would be his infamous wrecks that would eventually lead to roof flaps being added to the cars. It's safe to say that when it came to superspeedways, Rusty Wallace was not the master. In the span of 23 years, Rusty would go 0-23 at the event. Now, it would be unfair to say that he never came close to winning the Great American Race, as his best showing was back in 1999. Wallace was able to lead a whopping 104 laps. However, it would be Jeff Gordon who would make the pass with just 10 laps to go. His last run at the Daytona 500 would be in 2005. He would be able to score a top 10, however, he would not lead a lap in the race, and it would be Jeff Gordon again winning the 500. Damn, Rusty had a love-hate relationship with Gordon. Number 7. Mark Martin. Poor Mark Martin. The man could never win the big ones in his career. Similar to the Cup Series championship, Mark Martin came so close to winning the 500 multiple times, but was never quite able to seal the deal. 3 that come to mind are the 1997, 2000, and 2007 Daytona 500. In 1997, Mark Martin was able to lead an impressive 52 laps in the race. However, thanks to a late race caution, he was not able to challenge Jeff Gordon at the end, leading to that iconic Hendrick Motorsports 1-2-3 finish that we were talking about earlier. Mark Martin would finish 7th in that race. In the year 2000, considered to many as one of the most boring Daytona 500s in history, Mark Martin had another opportunity in winning the Great American Race, only to be passed by Johnny Benson Jr. near the end of the race and never having an opportunity again to run back up front. His most heartbreaking one, however, would be 2007, as he would split ties with his longtime partnership with Jack Roush in favor of a part-time schedule with a team known as Gin Racing. Near the end of the race, it seemed like Martin was finally going to be able to win his first Great American Race, as the rest of the field would wreck behind him, except for one driver, Kevin Harvick, who would stay side by side with Mark Martin going through the tri-oval and beating him by a mere 1/100th of a second. It's still considered to this day as one of the best finishes in NASCAR, which is great for us, but heartbreaking for the kid himself, as that would be his closest chance to winning the Great American Race. Number 8, Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart is one of the greatest drivers to race in the Gen 4 era of the NASCAR Cup Series. With 49 victories and 3 championships, it's tough to really find any area where Stewart struggled in the sport, except for the crown jewel events. Throughout his career, Tony Stewart would not be able to win the Southern 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and the Daytona 500. The last one being the biggest shocker, as Tony Stewart was the master at the Daytona opener in the Xfinity Series. Unfortunately, he was never able to do the same in the Cup Series opener. In 17 attempts, Stewart was never able to win that Great American Race. And it wasn't due to poor performance issues either. Between 2004 to 2008, Stewart was a contender in each one of those races. The closest being in 2008, where he was the leader with just 1 lap to go, until his future driver Ryan Newman would pass him on the final corners. The biggest heartbreaker in my opinion would be the year prior in 2007, where he had the strongest car in the field, only being rivaled by Kurt Busch. It would all come to an end, however, when both of them would wreck in turns 3 and 4, ending both of their chances and resulting in a last place finish. After those 2 attempts, he would never come close to winning the most prestigious race of the season. His last Daytona 500 would be in 2015, as for his final season in NASCAR, he would be injured in a dune buggy accident, which resulted in him missing the first 8 races of the season, truly showing that he had some of the worst luck when it came to this race. Number 9, Brad Keselowski. Now, I was going to include Martin Truex Jr. in this spot. However, unlike Brad Keselowski, Truex has never won a superspeedway race in NASCAR's top division as of 2023. Brad Keselowski, on the other hand, has won 7 different superspeedway races in his Cup Series career, 6 of them coming from Talladega, which makes it even more shocking that he hasn't been able to lift the Harley J. Earl Trophy in his career. This has been mostly due to the fact that the 2012 champion is typically in the garage area before the checkered flag flies, as in 13 attempts he has failed to finish 7 of them. His most heartbreaking being the 2021 Daytona 500, as his own teammate would block him in the second to last corner, ending his day in a shower of sparks and fire. Now, he is in a position to eliminate himself from this list, as he can potentially win the race as early as 2023. However, based on his track record, he will more than likely be in the garage area before the race is done. And number 10, Kyle Busch. Now, he is in a similar situation to Brad Keselowski, as he has a chance to win the Daytona 500 in 2023 and beyond, but as of making this video, Kyle Busch has not been able to win the Great American Race. In 17 attempts, Kyle Busch has been 0-17 at winning the 500-mile event, which for some fans is quite shocking. I mean, Kyle Busch has won almost everything there is to win at the sport except for the season opener. Some of the best chances he had were in his early seasons with Joe Gibbs Racing. In 2008, Busch would lead 86 laps in the event before he would have to settle with pushing Tony Stewart to the finish line, leading to a 4th place finish. In 2009, it looked to be another great opportunity again, as he was the leader for 88 laps before wrecking on lap 123 in a rain-shortened event. In 2016, the Toyotas were the strongest manufacturers in the field, but unfortunately he would have to settle for a 3rd place finish behind Truex and Hamlin finishing 1-2 at the finish line. And in his most recent Daytona 500, he would be able to lead 28 laps in the race, but the Fords had the stronger power and the higher numbers. Now, this year looks to be different, as he is now paired up with Richard Childress Racing in the number 8 car, a team who has won the most recent Daytona race as well as the Daytona 500 in 2018. Granted, it was with the number 3 car, but still, it's Richard Childress Racing. The question is, will Kyle Busch be the one to take the car into victory lane, or will it be another string of bad luck that the 2-time champion has been suffering for the last couple of years? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Was there anyone else that you wish I included? Let me know in the comments section. You guys are the ones that keep me motivated to keep making great NASCAR content, and I thank you so much for that. Make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, you all take care.